And as you hit in the bone, just sort of slide out away from the bone. Now we'll remove the muscle, the large muscle. Just clean it a little bit of the fat. And this muscle we'll cut across this way. Okay, I think that's enough for one portion. What do you think? I'm hungry, but I think that's enough. Top it up with some more. And just let the sauce fall down on the side over the Swiss chard. Now, this is so reminiscent of Trieste, with a little bit of red wine, Merlot wine. Merlot is a wine that is drank and that is grown in the Friuli Venezia Giulia and in the Veneto. The freshness of the grape with a stinco, it is just wonderful. And as we say in my house, tutti a tavola a mangiare. Strozzapreti, for those who don't speak Italian yet, because I'm going to slowly teach you, strozzapreti are wonderful ricotta dumplings, and they're called strozzapreti. Strozza means to choke, preti is a priest, and literally priest choked over this delicious dish. So here are strozzapreti. I'm going to teach you how to make gnocchi ricotta with radicchio sauce, and I'm going to teach you how to make this wonderful, delicious, zesty ricotta cheesecake. So stay with me. Buongiorno, benvenuti, welcome. Welcome to my ricotta kitchen. And ricotta is very versatile, but we're going to begin with making gnocchi ricotta. Now, here I have some ricotta draining overnight, and that's very important whenever you do anything with ricotta. But we begin with some eggs. Now, I know gnocchi. Gnocchi, you're familiar with gnocchi because you watch me make many times. But these are made out of ricotta. And the beauty of this is that you don't need to cook the potatoes. You don't need to, if you have some ricotta, some nice dry ricotta, you can whip up gnocchi in 15, 20 minutes for dinner. Okay. We'll season the eggs with a little bit of salt, a little bit of fresh pepper, a little nutmeg. Nutmeg is a spice that is used in Italy often, especially making pasta or gnocchis. And not too much of it, because it's very pronounced, especially when it cooks. Now, the ricotta. I had the ricotta here draining overnight, and that's the best way. And just put it in a sieve, and you see it will release a lot of its water. And why do you want that? It's because otherwise it will take the humidity. This water will absorb all that much more flour. And the more flour you put, you remember in the regular gnocchis, the same thing, the heavier they get. And of course, you want this to be light. Now, what is ricotta? Ricotta. Ri means again, done again, and cotta is cooked in Italian. So how is ricotta made? I made ricotta with my grandmother. And what happens is that you take milk. We used to make goat's milk ricotta, but you can make sheep's milk ricotta and, of course, cow's milk ricotta. And what it is after you make the cheese and the major curds, the big curds, are set aside to drain to make the cheese, there's the whey that's left. And in that whey, there's still some proteins and some solid. So you reboil that. And that, again, forms into another curd, which is looser than the curd for the cheese. It is leaner because most of the fat went into the cheese. So you get these loose curds of milk proteins. Casein is the milk protein. And they come to the top and you drain them. And then you put them in a sack or in a sieve, and that's what ricotta is all about. It's very mild. It's wonderful. I will add some flour this time. And be careful not to add too much, because again, we want them light. I will add some parsley, some chopped parsley. And again, you can add to this any flavoring that you want. I'll add some Parmigiano Reggiano, grated Parmigiano Reggiano. Okay, here I have some margarine. And I think margarine is a nice mild herb. It goes very well with the ricotta. I use margarine a lot also with chicken. If you really want to get the flavor of an herb, let's say rosemary or whatever, just before putting it on this finished dish, blanch them in hot water or stock, and the heat will sort of break those oil molecules, and there's the flavonoids, the flavors will come right out. So here we are. It is a little bit soft, and that's what you want again. You don't want to overwork it, and you don't want a lot of flour because it just be heavy. Flour makes it heavy. And again, we want to work as we do the regular gnocchis. Make it into a cordoon. Except these gnocchis are sort of a little lighter. We won't shape them. When you cook pasta, what you really want is to bring the boiling point up as quickly as possible. Because if you don't do that, these gnocchis will stick at the bottom, and they will stick together. So you want them to enter with abundance of water, high temperature. They get scalded right away, they seal themselves, and then you finish cooking them. We finish the gnocchi, and just keep them separate. Don't pile them. Use two sheet pans if that's necessary. But you need to cook them right away. You don't want to leave them hanging around because they will sort of get wet and need more flour. But what you can do, you can boil them and just butter them and leave them on the side, and then you can reheat them somewhat. But they're best when you just cook them and serve them, and they're that easy. So let's begin with the sauce. Something that requires a little bit more work in making, the sauce requires less work because you don't want to complicate matters. In cooking, simple things and simplicity is best. The less ingredients you can put in a dish, the better it is. So for this dish, we're going to need a little garlic, pancetta, olive oil, and a little bit of stock. As simple as that. And again, Parmigiano, of course. Let me make some space here. So garlic. I love garlic, but sometimes I have difficulties in digesting it, and a lot of people do. So what I do, you can chop it up and leave it in the sauce if that's what you like, or you can do what I do. Just crack it, and what that does, again, it breaks those molecules of flavor. And actually the garlic, you know what happens in the garlic? In each cell, in the cell wall, there are the enzymes, and the flavors is inside in the center. Put in a pancetta, or when you cut garlic, and you know the more you cut it, the more flavor you get out of it, is precisely what you're doing, this interaction, this chemical interaction. Now, we'll do some radicchio. And you want to shred it, just shred it. As I have it here. And let's put it right in. Now, The bacon fat, you can drain it out if you're sensitive or if you have dietary restrictions, or you could leave it in for flavor because you don't have that much fat or flavoring, and that's good. I sort of like that flavor. And plus, this bacon was a lean bacon. It didn't really render so much fat. And what you want is you want to braise. Now, the radicchio has that sort of little bitter taste. The actual ricotta, and that there's a little sweet, so it's a nice sort of harmony at the end between the sort of bitterness of the radicchio, the complexity of the pancetta, and the sweetness of the gnocchi. Okay, can I have a little stock, a little fresh pepper. And while this is simmering, we're going to put the gnocchis. Okay, the water is boiling. And when, again, you cook pasta, you need that water to be boiling vigorously. You need that high temperature, crank everything up, and just drop them in. Give them a gentle stir. Old tradition, we used to always put this, just so as it comes up fast, it doesn't overboil and get your whole stove sort of messy. Okay. I'm looking at this. It has flavor, but I think I would like to add a little bit of raw olive oil. I love drizzling olive oil at the end. And again, it's those flavors, because if you put them in the beginning, in cooking, you lose a lot of those flavors. Oh, okay, the gnocchis are done. You see how they grow, ricotta gnocchi sort of expand they grow in about half of the size of what you put them in. So I did them a little big because, you know, the show has a time limitation. And here my producer is always after me. But make them smaller. And again, gnocchi, the less you handle it, the better. So if you can flip, I think that's the best. Now we always put cheese, this is Parmigiano Reggiano, when the heat is off, because Parmigiano Reggiano is a finished product, and you heard this before from me, if you cook it, it will divide on you. The fat and the strings, you remember? Okay. So let's plate it. Nice hot plate. Let me get actually one unslotted because we want the sauce. Now, the gnocchi, when they're like this, they're pretty stable, so you don't have to worry about them breaking down any further. So you could make a big platter. I think that's always nice, a big platter in the center of the table, but you can even serve them individually. And do serve them in a sort of a soup bowl or something so that they stay all together and they maintain their heat longer, because if you put them on a wide plate, they just will run out and will cool off much faster. This is actually lavender. And it just matches the color of the radicchio. Feel free to do that. It's so nice. I mean, I love working with vegetables, with flowers, with whatever. This looks great. Yeah, it really smells wonderful. You didn't think I forgot about strozzapreti. Well, here we are back to making strozzapreti. Wonderful ricotta dumpling in a different way from the gnocchi that we made. You make it just as quick. So in these, we include spinach. The spinach are blanched. And again, you want to get as much water as you can out of the spinach. You let them sort of strain or drain for a while, and then you press them just with your hands. You can put them in a cloth and just twist, dry them. Because again, if they have water, water requires flour, and they become heavier. And all we want is to sort of chop them up in small pieces. Okay, this is perfect. Let me just whisk some eggs. Here I have the ricotta draining. Again, you want it dry because you don't want to use a lot of flour. A little pepper, fresh pepper is best. If you don't like to see the whole grinds of black pepper, you can use white pepper. a little nutmeg. Great flavor, especially gnocchis. Ricotta, which has been draining also. And this will sort of densen up, not with flour in them, but rather with some breadcrumbs. And in here I used it again to pull all the water, if there's any, to absorb it so that the gnocchis don't fall apart. And of course, the Parmigiano Reggiano. Now you notice I haven't put any flour yet, but I will use flour to roll them in. You just flour your hands well, and you make sort of little balls with it. And then you roll them in the flour, and you set them on the side. This is quite simple. I think, you can get the family involved. I think children would love to do that. Now we need to put them to cook. And while they're cooking, the sauce will be made. And this is a wonderfully simple sauce. We'll take a little bit of butter. Fresh sage leaves. Now, sage is very intense and it really has a wonderful, paired with butter and Parmesan cheese, it's really wonderful for pasta dressing. But you don't want to chop it up because eating sage could be a little bit too much. So you want the leaves, let them float around and stay in there with the flavor. But if somebody wants to eat them, let them eat them. Now, I don't want the butter divided, so I'm going to put some stock right away. Okay. The water really vigorously boiling, a lot of water, it's salted, and we'll just plop these right in there. And again, you need space for these, they need to move in there. And these are sensitive, because as you notice, the only thing that binds them in there is the bread. Again, let me cover it, and let's get it back to boiling point as soon as we can. And this I'm going to serve, again, hot plates. Remember, pasta, hot plates. And bowls again, because you want to keep them contained. I serve a lot pasta in the bowl because of the same reason, because you sort of pile it in the center, it retains its heat as you're eating it. In enjoying food, all of your senses really play a part. So you look at something, it looks good, you smell it, it reinforces that sort of excitement and begins you salivating. The sensation that you feel actually on your palate is very important, that sort of tactile sensation that happens in your mouth. It really stimulates you, and you have certain expectancy out of certain foods. Can you think of eating celery that's not crunchy? So you might not have thought of that way, but there is. And these two, being so big, I guess strozzapreti sort of just fills your whole mouth with it, and it sort of caresses you. I don't know, pasta caresses me when I eat it, and it goes down. So it's that feeling of being sort of hugged by these strozzapreti to the point of being choked. Oh. And you don't want to work too much. You don't want to mix them. Just shake the pan to get the sauce, and we'll close the fire, and then we'll add the Parmigiano Reggiano. How many proportion? I guess as a minestra course or a pasta course. In Italy, the courses go antipasto, minestra, or pasta. And minestra, even though it means soup, means actually in the sequence of courses, a pasta course. So this is a minestra course. And if you serve it as a minestra course, I think 4 would be fine. If you serve it as a main course, then I would double that, give 8. Should we make a main course here? Okay, let me just fill it up nice for you. What do we have? 4, 7, one more. A bit of sauce. And again, the decoration of the sage. And you know what I have here? The boragine flowers. The sage have the same color flowers. So I'm going to use just a little bit of boragine, if you don't mind. Oh. And they can eat that. Okay. This looks great. It has a wonderful aroma. And I truly understand why those priests were joking over this. Torta di ricotta, ricotta cheesecake, is one of those traditional desserts, Italian desserts, that's always a wonderful finish. Simple and delicious. I have separated some eggs here. Eggs, uovo. I'm going to teach you Italian, you remember? Uovo, one word at a time, uovo. And we put in sugar, zucchero. Zucchero is sugar. Like to work these, as in most desserts, to get it really sort of a pale, ribbony-like consistency. I'll add the ricotta, which has been draining. You want a dry ricotta again. Now I'm going to add half a cup of cream. Just a pinch of salt. And again, we want to get it really creamy and homogenized. I'm going to add the orange and lemon zest, and that I want mixed well in. The rest is just folding in. Here what I have some raisins soaking in rum, and I'm going to put the whole thing in. I have some pinoli nuts. Always toast them first and let them cool. It just brings out the aroma in them. You know those oils? You want to sort of break those oils and let the aromas come out. And I'm going to work the egg whites separately. I'm just put a pinch of salt. Okay. You want it until sort of peaks form. But of course, you know that. You've been cooking with me so long. We'll just fold the egg whites right in. And once the egg whites have been whipped, you just want to slowly fold it in and retain that airiness about it. So let's lightly butter a spring form. A spring form is good for this, although you can use a solid form. But since we're not using really a dough or crust, it is much easier to sort of demold it. And again, breadcrumbs. I love working with them and using them all up. You could use cookie crumbs. You could use shell, a pie shell or a tart shell. And basically, just pour this right in. And let it bake. It will rise, and then it will sort of fall in the center. That's perfectly fine. When you pull it out, you'll see it's nice and risen, and then it falls back into the center. But that's the way it is. Just like this. Maybe we want to settle it a little bit, so just give it a little tap so it settles in. And we'll cook it for about an hour at a 375-degree hot oven. Not too high the oven, because you want it slowly to cook throughout. So here we are, ready to serve dessert, ricotta cheesecake. It's been baked and let out to cool at room temperature until it's really cool. But I like it at room temperature. I don't like it cold. You might want it cold, but I like it at room temperature. So just let sort of move the spatula around just to detach in case it is sticking someplace, and of course open the spring. Come right out. And you could serve it right out of here and cut it, but I think I'm going to just slide it on a plate because it looks so much nicer. Okay. Nice generous portion. It's nice and moist with the raisins and the pinoli nuts. And here is the raisins. We can make the same decorations out of the same ingredients. And I'd like to just pour a little bit and just sprinkle a few around the plate. While you were waiting for the cheesecake to cool, I made some candied lemon rinds. All this is is just sort of lemon rinds, cut shoestring, boiled in sugar syrup. You let them steep in sugar syrup until they cool. You drain them, and then you toss them in a lot of sugar. So this is ready, and I'm going to pour a little bit of the Muscadet wine to enjoy with this. Now, of course, powdered sugar is always an option, and it's a nice option. Gives a little bit of sort of different texture to the dish, a little bit of the lemon rinds. You know, one of my fondest sensual memory is a springtime in Sicily. And if you go there around February, Sicily is the land of the mandorle. Mandorle are almonds. And you have this whole countryside, all these white puffs of trees, and the aroma of almonds, the intense sweet aroma of almond blossom all over. So I went out here, just outside in front here. This is wild plum tree, but it'll do. It'll do for almonds. Here we are, simple, beautiful, and delicious. With this, I'm going to have a little bit of Moscatel, as I told you before. It's made out of Moscato grape. The Moscato grape grows all over Italy, and it's a wonderfully aromatic grape, and it makes excellent dessert wine. So look for this Moscatet with this cheesecake. It just goes beautiful. And salute e tutti a tavola a mangiare. For those days when your house is unexpectedly invaded by hungry mouths, like when Joseph, my son, was going to BC, and Tanya, my daughter, was going to Georgetown University, and on the weekend, of course, all the kids wanted to spend time in New York City, they would camp out all over my house. And this is the dish that I would make to keep them hungry, to feed them, to feed their hunger, and keep them happy. So you stay with me, and I'll teach you how to make it. Buongiorno, benvenuti. Welcome, benvenuti alla mia cucina saporita. Saporita is flavorful. And you guys think that us professional chefs have some magic bag where we pull all our tricks of flavors out. Well, it's not so. They're all yours to have. And if I were to tell you any major secret, it's as simple as fresh herbs. Here today we're going to use fresh oregano. Now I'm sure that you know oregano that has been dried, and that has its own flavor. It's a different intensity, but try using fresh herbs. They really make a difference. So today we're going to make pork chops or pork scallopini. These are the actual chops taken away from the bone, and then I pounded them into scallopini because I felt I wanted a different texture, and they're much quicker to cook. And pizzaiola, what does pizzaiola mean in the pizza style, Neapolitan style? But it could mean adding peppers, capers, tomatoes. This dish, I'm going to put the pasta together with the meat. And it's fine to do that sometimes. As a child, I remember all the time having a big plate of gnocchi with 2 pieces of chicken braised in guazzetto. So let's go. The first thing, the time that it takes to cook the pasta, the meat will be ready. Okay, we'll let that one go. I have the boiling water here. It's salted, plenty of it, because cooking pasta, the pasta has to dance in the water. So this is, I have pounded this and ready for you. I have chosen some that have more marbling for those of you that enjoy, because you know, flavor sort of travels with the fat molecule, so this will be more flavorful, but a little bit more fatty. Now again, you can buy them, the chop, and then debone it with this is. Let's just take out all of the excess fat. And I'm gonna butterfly it. This is what's butterflying. And you really don't need all that much, just to sort of, see, it looks like a butterfly. Okay. So pizzaiolo has basically garlic as the flavoring base. You know, the Italian cuisine, you start with the garlic family or with the onion family. I'm just gonna crush some garlic cloves. This way I'm able to pull them out. I want a lot of the flavors of garlic, but I don't want to eat the garlic. I have problems with eating the garlic, even though I love it. I'm going to lightly flour, salt, and then lightly flour, and shake off all excess. Let me just. And what you want, you just want to caramelize sort of the outside. That's why I have the high heat. I don't want to cook it at this point because I'm going to reintroduce it in the sauce. And as you can tell, it's still sort of raw on the inside, but that's how I want it. Let me add in. Now, you could, if you sense that there's too much fat in there, you can drain it. I like that sort of flavor of caramelization, and I didn't think there was a lot of fat in there. No. And pasta water, very important. Now you see, these tomatoes were kind of nice and dry, but I wanted a little bit more liquid. So I'm going to go right to the pasta water. Again, I don't have any secrets out of my bag. I just go to the pasta pot. A little bit of raw olive oil, and again, that sort of leaves that fresh olive oil flavor in the sauce, because when you cook it, a lot of it dissipates. I'm going to put, and you know how I use herbs, I use it twice. I use it in the beginning to really get into the flavor of the sauce, and then I use it at the end to get the freshness of the herb. And in this case, I'm going to put the whole sort of little branches, and then I can pull them right out when they have changed colors and I don't want them to be in there. Since we're going to add peppers to this sauce, I'm going to blanch the peppers. And the peppers, I'm going to blanch right into the pasta water. You're asking why? Why not? You don't need another pot for this. You're going to flavor it anyway with this. This way, it saves you a pot. It even flavors the pasta. So let's do it. And why do I blanch them? I could put them right in here. I mean, you could do it. And again, pepper have some repeating effects on certain people. And if that happens to you, then just blanch it before you're using it. Even when you're using the whole pepper, just blanch it a little bit, and it will take away some of that sort of element that returns when you eat raw peppers. So I'm doing it for this reason, but could I have thrown it directly into the sauce? Yes. And it doesn't take much. just going to let it steam a few minutes. You can see it in this bubbling sauce like this. You can almost see when things fall together. For me, you know, after all these years, I just sense when it's right. But give it about 10, 15 minutes. The sauce with crushed tomatoes from a can will pull itself together like this. I think that the peppers should be blanched. There. Put them right in here. Okay. We'll make some room and we'll put the pork right in there. I have the capers. And they don't need to be cooked all that much. As a matter of fact, you don't want them to be cooked really until they fall apart. Okay, I think we're ready. Pasta is cooked, sauce is done. Now let's go for the main event. I'm going to saute the pasta. You know, again, I love to saute my pasta in the sauce. Okay, just give me a chance. I want to do the best job that I can for you. I want it to look really beautiful, so you're going to run out to shop. You know, I get that in the email. It says, you know, after I finished watching your show, it looked easy, it looked doable. I went right out and bought the ingredients and made it for the family. And there's nothing more rewarding for me than to hear that, to know that I have sort of touched you and your family and that you're going to cook this. I'm going to shut the fire. I'm going to add the cheese. And you see that the pork, it's nice and juicy. It's not dried out because we didn't overcook it. Okay. So let's add some oregano. Again, it's the same. And it's also because it gives it last minute flavor. When you put this in front of somebody's nose, just the whole thing comes right out. I'm not going to disrupt that, but I'm going to take a pasta out of here. I love eating out of pots. I really do. Even in the restaurant, you know, says, Lydia, you're going to sit down. I'm going to taste this. That's the problem. I taste this, I taste that. So they give me a little pot, whatever's left in the pot, and I eat right there. Very good. Very, very good. This is another one of those dishes that it's very flavorful. It's a traditional dish, and you can make it for many people. And it really is a favorite in the restaurants, at home, with the kids. It's chicken alla valdostana. Petto di pollo. Pollo is chicken in Italian. Petto is breast, so petto di pollo alla valdostana. Valdosta, after which this name comes, is a little sort of region of Italy nestled between Piemonte and France. And the fontina, the cheese that we're going to use for this dish, is also from that region. So it's a nice, sort of very flavorful dish. You take a breast of chicken, and this is kind of large. I'm going to just sort of butterfly it. It doesn't have much fat. If it does, remove the fat away. And with this, we are going to serve lentils. And it's very nice because it's a nice balance. The dish is rich. It has prosciutto, it has cheese. And by using the lentils, we put very little in the actual condiment of the lentils, but we flavor it with vegetables. and it sort of absorbs the sauce of the chicken, and it sort of balances. So the first thing, what takes the longest is actually the lentils. We'll put them to cook. And these are the regular lentils that you can buy in the stores. You put it just in water. You sort of pick through them, you wash them a little bit, and then you put in water, put 2 bay leaves right in there. I'm going to put a drizzle of olive oil. And the vegetables here are just sort of diced. It's a little larger than a mirepoix. Put them in at the same time that you do the lentils, because you want them to cook together, and it takes about the same time for them to cook. Let's put the lid on. Do you know that if you put the lid on whenever you cook something, you serve about 1/3 of the energy? When you're pounding it, sort of cover it with a plastic wrap so you really don't break the meat itself, and just sort of pound it away from the center. Take a slice of prosciutto. This is prosciutto di Parma. And you take the back part of the knife and you just sort of make it adhere like this, attach like this. And then when you cook it, it's going to stick, you'll see. And if not, you'll help it, but it'll work just fine. And so I use olive oil and butter, which have low smoking points. Now, if I wanted to raise the temperature, I would use vegetable oil, which has a higher smoking point. And with this, as I don't want to bring the saltiness out of prosciutto, I want sort of a lower smoking point. And I'm going to put prosciutto face down. And again, when doing these dishes, find a pan that gives you enough space so that everything can lay comfortably and really touch the bottom of the pan and get caramelized. I'm going to just slightly flour it on one side. You could have floured the whole thing, front and back, but I'm going to just do the back. And why do you use flour? You actually use flour because then the flour caramelizes it and melts into the sauce and gives you a nice, a little denser sauce. So that's why you use flour but you can do it without. Absolutely can do it without. Let's just check it. Okay, there it is. I don't want it you see it sticks to the chicken, no problem, but I don't want it any browner in this case because the prosciutto really sort of hardens and gets salty. Now, what is prosciutto? Prosciutto is a cornerstone product of the Italian cuisine. Every part of Italy enjoys it, eats it, and makes some kind of prosciutto. It is the hind legs of the pig, and it is air cured, and it has only salt and air. There's no other element that is added to it. At this point, I'm going to raise the temperature because I'm going to add some wine. I'm going to add Pinot Grigio in this case because it has nice acidity. But you can add any wine, white wine. You can even add Marsala or sherry if you like a little bit more complexity to this. When cooking with wine, remember, the quality of the wine that you put in just enhances the quality of what you're making. Here we're going to add just a touch of crushed tomatoes I have here. The sort of the San Marzano peeled tomato crushed well or passed through a food mill. I'm just going to add a little bit for color and also the acidity in it. It sort of helps to balance the sauce. Here we have the fontina, and I'm going to put this lay it just on top. And then we're going to put the whole thing in the oven. Now, that's why I say that it's a good dish to make when you have a lot of people over, because you can have 1 or even 2 pans. Why not 2? And at this point, you put it in the oven and you'll let it finish in the oven. So when you're ready to serve, you just pull it out of the oven and everything is just perfect. Let me put some more cheese. I like cheese, so I'm going to put some. Okay. Let me just put a dab of tomato sauce on top of each, just to give it that color. Okay. Also sprinkle a little bit of the Parmigiano. I smell the bay leaves really coming through the lentils. All right. Take it like this, and we'll put it in the oven as it is. The oven not too high. All right, the lentils are ready. So let's drain the lentils. And we'll just put them in a saute pan. And as I said, I'll put just a little bit of olive oil since we have the dish is so rich in itself. Let's a little salt. Put just a little bit of stock. And I'm going to add spinach just for freshness, because I like it, because it sort of lightens up the whole dish. But can you leave the lentils just like that? Fine. Of course, it's been washed, the spinach. And we just fold it right in there. I'll just put a little bit more oil. And here, I don't want the spinach to really sort of cook and disappear. I want it to sort of really remains as green spots between the lentils. All right. This is all set. All right. I think it looks just perfect. How about that? What I'm going to do is I'm going to just sort of reduce a little bit more of the sauce while I do the service. Now, at this point, you know, you could sort of spoon out some of the fat from the cheese will have come up to the top. And if you're really sensitive, you could really spoon it out at this time. Okay, let's begin the plating. Hot plate, hot food, and hot plates, because otherwise you lose right away the temperature on the food. I'm going to put the lentils right in the center. Keep it clean all the time. I think 2 pieces of chicken is a nice portion. Let me choose 2 nice pieces. Just like that. Now, since some of the cheese will have broken into the sauce, you can eat it like that. It's very good. But you know, this is sort of my restaurant eye working, where I want everything to be just sort of flawless or perfect. You see, if you put it without the strainer, you get those little specks. What do you like? You like the specks better? I think I do. Forget about the strainer. Very good. Now, a good herb with this is margarine. Just sort of, and you will get enough just by laying it on the hot sauce like this, you will get enough, when eating, from the heat of the sauce, enough flavor, because margarine is very delicate, but it is very, very good with chicken and with fowl. No. All right, do we want just a little bit on the top? Ooh, that's a hot. Very, very nice, and it smells delicious. The prosciutto, you know. I mean, each dish has a strong odor, like the lentils have the bay leaves, and then there is the complexity of the prosciutto coming here and the cheese. So those two harmonize right into my nostrils and really get my excitement and appetite going. And with this, a nice glass of Pinot Grigio, the same one that I put in. So, as we say at my house, tutti a tavola a mangiare, mangiare alla valdostana. Cin cin.
There is nothing as good as a great hamburger.
Yes, we're doing everything from hamburgers to Chateaubriand today.
We are cooking beef.
So good.
Happy cooking.
Bon appetit. We're going to do pan-fried steaks, and Jack has a great panoply of them and is going to tell you all about them.
Yes. Well, you're going to do some steak dine with that beautiful ribeye steak, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And look at that one. I mean, this is nice marbling, yeah?
Now, this is the one example of prime meat that we have. Only 2% of our beef now is prime, and most of it is not very well aged. But this one is great, and it's terribly expensive. What is it about?
Oof.
$10 or $12 a pound
Yes,
or
about
more.
like this, yes.
But it's worth it to have one meal with a perfect steak.
And all of those are kind of bistro steak, you know, which have become fashionable in the last few years. We have the classic flank steak. That flank steak now costs a small fortune, right?
It
used
does,
to be cheap, and
yes.
now it's very expensive. So, and the fourth one that I have here is actually the top blade. I mean, in New York, this is called the chicken steak. In Boston, it's the top blade steak. In San Francisco, it's the flat iron steak. So they have different type of name. It's part of the chuck, yes,
It's
part
on
of the
top
shoulder.
of your shoulder.
Right.
Oh.
And it's quite good too. And it's available basically under one name or another all over. So there is a large nerve in the center. What I'm going to do is to cut this on top of that large sinew that there is in the center. I don't know. You see that sinew here?
Yeah.
So I can cut one from the other side here. It's the best way
You can feel
of
that with
cutting
your
it.
knife, I
Yes.
guess.
So this is pan-fried steak, very simply done with garlic and a little bit I can use garlic today.
Well, certainly
Okay,
with a
good.
steak.
Okay.
Yeah,
And here,
that's so beautiful.
what I like to do for the steak au poivre, the paper steak, to cut it double like this, to clean it out. I mean, here we have an expensive piece of meat, so we have to take care of it. And to cut it in half, you know. I like to cut it like a kind of a tourne-dos like this, you know. Cut this way. So I'll have 2 steak au poivre. Now your steak is going to be...
The ribeye steak, you know, the roast ribs of beef, and this is the steak that comes in between the ribs.
Uh-huh.
And we're going to trim that off.
But this one is nice. Put it a piece of plastic on each side. So which type of torture instrument we're going to use upon this?
It has to be pounded down to a quarter of an inch. You show that.
That wake up the neighbors, you know.
Yes.
You have to go where you have like a 2x4 underneath, you know. This is yours, it's beautiful. You know, this is an old one. I remember using that many, many years ago. Because this, you can use it to cut chop, you know, pork chop, and break the bone also. So this is... Is that thin enough?
That's about
anything?
a quarter of an inch. I think that's about right. I'm going to flavor it with a little bit of soy and a little bit of oil. And this can be done ahead. Are you going to cook your pepper steak?
I'm going to start mine, but
right.
I'm just heating up my pan because I want to see what you're doing. I'm writing the recipe down, you know.
I'll put a little
Okay,
soy on each of these.
that's good. You want a bit of oil on the other side too?
Yes, let's have a little.
Okay, that's nice.
I'm just going to put a little clarified butter in there. And this you can do at the table if you like showing off. And it needs just about 2 minutes on each side.
Yeah, this is pretty thin, so it cooks fast.
And so while this is doing, you'll be sort of getting ready your sauce. I have some nice stock over there.
Yeah.
And we have
Nice.
wet mustard.
We have some mustard right here.
Oh, mustard right there.
Yeah.
This is hardly going to color. Now these are done enough for now. So this is the first stage. Take them off. Then I'm going to make the sauce.
All right.
Need some
Put in
shallots.
You want some shallots?
Yeah. Good.
What else you
I'll
need?
put a little bit more butter in there, and then we want to mix the mustard with some of the stock there, that Dijon type mustard. Mix it up, and then we can add more if needed.
All right.
You would have all of these things on a beautiful silver salver right next to you.
You know, it used to be very popular. I mean, the steak Diane, you know, and I haven't seen in restaurants for so many years.
I think we could put a little more stock in, Jack.
Yeah. A bit more stock.
The steaks get dipped into this.
Smells good.
It's supposed to be nice and rare.
Well, it is rare. You can see the liquid of the steak here.
And just to be
You want that
stirred
back
this-
in there?
Let's put it back in.
Okay.
Now these are really ready to serve.
They're ready to
We have a
serve.
nice plate over there. I'll just serve one of them. Now, that could really serve 2 people.
Shall I give you your garnish?
Yes, give me my garnish. I'll put a little parsley on there.
You have a nice garnish of potato here. With that 3 potato should be enough, right?
I don't think that's plenty. You can put a little more sauce on it. That sauce looks delicious, doesn't it? Well, that's all there
Okay.
is to that. You can add what you want. This is not a recipe written in stone. Now we're going to do the pepper steak or the steak au poivre.
Right. And here I have 4 different types of pepper. Conventionally, we use the black peppercorn. I have allspice or Jamaican pepper, it's called. This is Szechuan peppercorn, and this is the green peppercorn, but you don't really have to use all of this. See, what I do there, with the bottom of that small skillet is to rub it on top of it to crack all of the kernel. That's
That's
it. When it doesn't make any more noise, you know it's all cracked. So we spread it out. Julia, you want to